Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final session for the Brown track today. I'm proud to introduce you to Peter. Peter has over 25 years of experience within IT and over 15 years of experience within Q&A. You name it, and Peter has done it when it comes to testing. And today he will be talking about usability testing with zero budget. Now, pay attention, this session is a pre-recorded session and Peter won't be able to join us after the session for the Q&A, so it's not live on video, but he is present and he will answer your questions during the sessions in the chat. So if you have any questions during the session, do not forget to put them in the Q&A section and Peter will answer them as good as possible and as soon as possible. I'm pretty sure you all have tons of questions regarding usability testing with zero budget. So I now leave the word to Peter in his pre-recorded session. Enjoy.
Okay, hi there. My name is Peter Sabev and I'm the CEO of Wabicus. Thank you for joining me at TestCon and even virtually. I hope you will obtain some interesting facts and tips and information on my topic, which is usability testing with zero budget. So, in the beginning of my talk, I'm going to bring you to year 2017 and the Oscars. I don't know if you remember the mistake that happened there. It was really interesting because for the best picture, uh, actually they grabbed the paper where Best Actress was written about Emma Stone and La La Land. And probably one of the reasons behind that is that Best Actress is with that small font in the bottom. So just imagine if it was something like this, probably that big mistake wouldn't happen. And to be honest, those mistakes are all around us. For instance, sometimes usability is really uh, frustrating, and sometimes products are just unusable because of simple mistakes or omissions. And today I'm going to talk exactly about those things. Now, the agenda for the next 40 minutes is some catch-up explanations, measuring usability with 10 different metrics. I will talk a little bit about cognitive walkthrough, heuristic evaluation with 10 heuristics attached, and yes, of course, exploratory testing and questionnaires. So let's start with the ketchup explanations and Heinz. So Heinz, they have been producing ketchup and changing the design of their bottles, which is a great illustration of how they reached today's design, and also a very good example to make the difference between what is UI, user interface, UX, user experience, and usability. So, really simply said, user interface, those are the visual elements, the interaction between the human and the system, and everything that we usually call design, or simply said, the answer to the question where to click. User experience, UX, this is our emotion and how do we feel while clicking, simply said. This is our emotional connection with the product that makes the task pleasant to do. And usability, this is uh, the usage itself and how easy it is to do the job while clicking, or the perception of the end user on how that person can effectively, efficiently, and satisfactorily learn and complete a given task. So if you see some job ads or documentation where they just write UI, UX, and usability with slashes, now I hope you know the simple difference. And today I'm going to talk mostly about usability. And here is the time for a short definition. According to ISTQB, usability testing, this is a testing to determine the extent to which the software product is understood, easy to learn, easy to operate, and attractive to the users under specified conditions. So as you can see, there is a small overlap between the different terms, but still I'm going to talk about usability. Continuing with some facts and data, so 42% of all source code is related to the user interface. 48% of users say that they feel frustrated when using software product. 83% of the users say that seamless experience is very important. And look at that, only 16% of the companies are conducting any usability testing. So why is that? The answer is simple. The proper usability testing is expensive. You usually go to those labs that are in the FBI movie styles where there are some people looking behind a mirror wall and taking notes about different things. There is a user that has to perform some actions and an interviewer, and generally those people are inspecting different aspects of the user behavior of the product. Some even more advanced system put glasses that are tracking the eye retina of the user and what they are clicking, where they are looking at, etc., etc. For mobile application, there could be some cameras that zoom in and give you some close-ups of what exactly the user is doing. And these laboratories and the experts that are behind the mirror glasses and all of these things cost terribly a lot of money for most of the companies. And usually as QAs, our usability testing budget is this. Exactly empty wallet. But there is still a hope, and we can do usability testing with zero budget. This is why I'm here to talk about that. What you actually need is 20 plus users that are typical system users of typical end users of the systems, and if they don't have any knowledge about that system, it is even better. So you can grab your family, your friends, or even colleagues who are not aware about the capabilities of the system and they haven't used it, let's say from the other room or the other team. So the possibilities are endless, but all in all, you need 20 plus people to use the system, and from there on you can measure a lot of things. I'm going to give you 10 different metrics of what to measure, and all of them are connected to one of those things: effectiveness, which is the percent of tasks completed, number of clicks, and you have the other, which is efficiency. This is related to what time is needed to complete a task, what time is needed to learn a specific feature or do a specific job. And the last one is user satisfaction, which means their perception, their feeling of usefulness. So having said that, let's go with the first metric, which is really simple: completion rate. You have a simple task and you ask the question, can the user complete their task? And you have yes or no. After that, you take that task and let's say in this particular example, there will probably be a big percentage of users who are not able to complete the simple task enter the house. And we should look for the reason behind that. The second metric from there is usability problem. There can be many problems, and you can gather those programs and count how many users have encountered it. The possibilities here are endless. Trust me, I will just give you this one. An old man who has been posting his letters in the dog poo box for 2 years. They have the post boxes, and the poo boxes obviously have similar designs, and this has confused the user. Metric number 3, this is the task time, or we need to record for how long it takes user to complete a task. Usually it is measured in seconds. So you have a task, and you need to determine how long it takes as time to complete it. And for instance, we have 2 speed dials here for cars, and how quickly you can say what is the current speed is a good task to complete. So for most of you, probably that would be the right dial, but of course I don't know. At the same time, if you have those dials and you need to know the speed in miles per hour, probably the winner will be the left one. So things like that can determine, for instance, which design is better for achieving specific speed of completing different tasks. Next one, this is expectation, and actually the next two, they go together. So first we ask the users how difficult they expect the task to be. Write down what they said. Let's say cleaning a window or cleaning a glass, we just spray it, wipe it, and that's it. So usually people say that's very easy. And the fifth metric is we actually make the users complete that task, and after completing it they say how difficult it was. And if it is like this, we compare their expectations with the reality, and this is how we measure their expectations and the final outcome of what they have done. Another good metric is the errors. Probably you have seen that end users are really creative at doing unintended actions, different slips, mistakes, or omissions while attempting to do a specific task. So when the user starts doing their job, just record what obstacles they face and what are their omissions, mistakes, and later on you can discuss with the team how to avoid this. After that, we go with metric number 7, which is the number of steps and clicks. How many steps and clicks are needed to complete the task, and what is the time between those steps. So I remember that there were more than 50 steps, for instance, to set up internet on an old Nokia phone. But I really like this good example. If you go to Amsterdam, you will probably land at the Schiphol airport, and you will need to buy a ticket from the airport to the city. And look at this beautiful button, I want to go to Amsterdam. there are like maybe 70-80% of the users which want exactly this. Of course, they can click any of the other buttons and type Amsterdam, but this takes really a lot of time, and having a separate button for the most common action actually saves a lot of time to everyone. Metric number 8, conversion. So usually we have a goal that could be user to complete a given action, to make a purchase, or even simply click a specific button or link. And we need to check if the user has been able to complete it, and actually uh, here is maybe the time to define the so-called A/B testing. So for instance, we have a button, we have option A to have it in orange color, or option B to have it in green color. We give half the visitors option A, half the visitor option B, and we see that orange button, for instance, gives you twice more conversions. So probably this is the better option. Actually, they don't need to be 50-50. For big user databases like let's say Facebook's one, uh, it is even enough to have 0.1% of the people to make very exact measurements on a new feature, whether it will it be accepted, where will it accelerate the work or not, and things like that. So just a quick question to you. So this is A/B testing for SimCity. We have absolutely the same site, but there is a small difference, and it is this pre-order banner on the left option. So the left option has pre-order banner for $20 off of the next purchase, and the right variation doesn't have that banner. So which one would you think would make more conversions? If you have said right, you are probably right. Yeah, most people say that the banner one, the left one, is the better, but actually the reality shows people usually get distracted. They start to search different promo codes and things like that, and forget to click the buy now buttons and buy the game actually. So sometimes the marketing strategies are wrong, and the only way to determine that is by testing. I'm going to metric number 9, which is to test the level satisfaction and ask about the overall ease of use. Later on, I will talk about questionnaires, and I will mention SUS and SuperQ. And actually, the next one is single usability metric. So you can bind the previous metrics into a single score and make a standardized average of different metrics according to which ones are more important to you or less important. So yes, you can make your own single metric and measure regularly your product to check how the usability changes over the time, or how the task completion changes and things like that. Next thing I would like to talk about is the cognitive walkthrough. And actually, although it sounds a little bit complicated, it consists of just 3 steps. Step number 1, you define steps to conduct task. Step 2 is ask exactly 4 questions for each of those steps. And step number 3 is to report the information and data gathered, and of course improve the software. So in short, that's the cognitive walkthrough. And probably you are asking yourselves what these 4 questions are in step number 2. So for each of the steps we ask whether is it clear for the user which action they have to do. Is the correct action obviously available? Once users find the control, will they recognize that it produces the effect they want? And after the action, will users understand the feedback they got so they can go on to the next action with confidence? One of the big advantages of cognitive walkthrough is that you don't need to have an end finished product. You can actually do that by the time you have wireframes or mockups of the designs, and just go step by step and answer each of those 4 questions. So another mode of usability testing is the so-called heuristic evaluation, or this is an expert review of system usability against a set of guidelines or heuristics, and I'm going to give you 10 different heuristics in order to be able to do that evaluation. So first one is visibility of system status. So the system should always keep users informed about what is going on through appropriate feedback within reasonable time. What do I mean? One good example, for instance, is when you Google a specific flight, and you can get exactly what is its current status, whether it has been started, whether it has arrived, whether it's delayed. So this progress bar with the plane can give you exactly an exact information on what the status is, even if you are not very advanced in let's say tracking flights. You can see the starting point, the end point, the different departure and arrival times, terminals, gates, and everything is there. Heuristic number 2 is a match between the system and the real world. The system should speak the user's language with words, phrases, and concepts that are familiar to the users, and this should be done in a natural and logical order. That is why when you have, let's say, accounting software to the regular average everyday normal guy, it can be really complicated, but for accounting professionals it could be exactly what they need. And actually one of my favorite examples is for one of the old iOS versions, where you have different online books, and these online books as files are listed like in a real library or real bookshelf. Next heuristic, this is heuristic number 3, is about the user control and freedom, or the so-called undo and redo buttons. Users always want to be confident and to know that if they choose any functionality by mistake, they can get back to a secure position. So they always have this emergency exit to leave the unwanted state. And I will give you 2 examples here. One is from Windows, when you have file deletion, or always messages that are that important, you have to have a confirmation. And of course, you have to be able to undelete those files later. Even for Google, I really like their feature when, let's say, you send a message, and if the message has been sent by mistake, you just have a couple of seconds to click undo, and that is how you get back your email without being sent to the wrong person. Next heuristic, this is heuristic number 4, and it is about consistency and standards. Users should not have to wonder whether different words, situations, or action mean the same thing. And a good example is the good old login form. No matter what login form you have, usually you always have this username or email or account name. You have the password field, and you have a button that is called login or sign in. And of course, usually you have those links for when you have problems, you have forgotten your password, or uh, you just have no account, so you need to create an account. So generally, if let's say you put a form that first you have to write the password and then the username, this will be probably confusing for the user. And yeah, we need to be careful with doing changes and innovations for things that are well known. So now let's talk about error prevention. Even better than good error messages is a careful design that prevents a problem from occurring in first place. And yeah, we can talk about let's say USB and USB-C standards. Uh, you know that it is always hard for the other USB standard to find the proper direction to plug in your USB port. And for instance, USB-C resolved this problem. However you plug in the cable, it always works. So this is how we can prevent error before it even happened. Another example is while you are typing your password, let's say during password change, you just are giving ticks or crosses for all of the restrictions. So if your password must have 8 or more characters, apparent lowercase letter, at least one number, while you type, you get all of these conditions satisfied or not, and you get notification by having them in green and red with ticks and crosses and so on. And of course, last but not least, as an example, Google, you just try to type something, it is obviously a typo, but you get immediately auto suggestions, and even if you press enter, for instance, you get results for the closest match. So this is how Google is actually preventing the errors before they are made. Uh, Another thing users don't like to do is to remember a lot of stuff. So it is really cool if your product or software is able to help them and minimize their memory by making object sections and options visible without the need of remembering any information from one part of your software to another. So the good old Foursquare, for instance, if you add your tastes, These are you don't have to remember which one you off and which one you haven't checked yet. This is shown to the end user. Or another even better example maybe, for instance, if I decide to book from booking.com a hotel in Berlin, I choose a hotel and you can see that I have chosen the same hotel in year 2018, and this is shown to me, so I was there, yes, of course. So all the dates, all the settings are displayed, so I don't need to remember whether did I put two adults and two kids or just two adults, whether I put Berlin or Berlin plus the area around the Berlin's federal state, for instance. So all of these things are displayed and shown to the user, which makes the job easier. Heuristic number 7: flexibility and efficiency of use. So we have the so-called accelerators, unseen by the novice user, but may often speed up the interaction for the expert users. Here go all the stuff like shortcuts, individual setup, and different modes like simple mode, advanced mode, etc. And I think this picture says it all. This is Microsoft Word with all the different toolbars enabled. So no one uses Microsoft Word like that, I hope, at least. You only use the features that you are most frequently using, that are most important to you. So, for instance, if you are making let's say students book in maths, in geometry, you will probably get those rectangles and circles and different shapes for drawing toolbar. But for instance, if you prefer to write a novel, probably you will just have the formatting toolbar and nothing else. So enough about this heuristic. The next one is aesthetic and minimalist design, or why the dialog should not contain information which is irrelevant or rarely needed. This is actually Opel Astra. I really like that model, but most of people didn't, because look at the cockpit, it is quite overcrowded with different buttons, and this was one of the most negative remarks. So in the next generation of the car, the buttons looked like this, much less, and the reason behind that was exactly that there were many unneeded, probably, actions on the cockpit. So the simpler you make your software, the better. Actually, this is the Yahoo website in the 90s, and this is how Google looked. Even then, it looked much more simplified, and we all know who won the war in the search engines. Last year, the Bulgarian Google at least looked that simple, and let's face it, most of the modern browsers and phones, all you need is that. All you have on your screen is that for Google. So things are getting simpler and simpler during the years. And actually, my favorite author about usability, Steve Crook, he has written a book that is called "Don't Make Me Think." Says get rid of half of the words on each page, and then get rid of half of what's left. So heuristic number 9, this is recognizable, diagnosable, and recoverable errors. Error messages should be expressed in plain language, without codes precisely to indicate the problem and constructively suggest a solution. So most of you have probably seen errors like this. So yeah, experienced user would say, okay, probably invalid name or password. I need to type again correct credentials. But many users get confused and frustrated with errors like this. And usually when you get an error, actually user ask themselves, okay, well, what do I need to do? So for instance, in Windows we have a program that has crashed for some reason, and the only option is to close it. And this was in the old Windows version. The newer one actually gives us much more opportunities, as you can see. They give us possible solutions to the problem, like checking online for a solution and close the program, simply close the program or debug it, or even to look at the problem details like logs, exceptions, and things like that. It is even better if you can see exactly where your error is. Like here you are filling out some web form, you press submit and you get errors, but you get these errors highlighted in red, which makes it extra easy to uh, check what is not good with that and to correct the mistakes. And the more modern interfaces, they even do those checks while you type. And the last heuristic is about help and documentation. Help information should be available, easy to search, focused on the user's tasks. It should also list concrete steps to be carried out and not be too large. So, for instance, let's check these two fields, date of birth and RID number. Uh, the upper one doesn't have any explanation, you just need to type something and we don't know what. In the second example, we have those placeholders, so we know that now the day and the month should be in the beginning and the year should be at the end. It would be even better if we knew which one is the month and which one is the day, of course. So instead of 1 31 12, for instance, would be even better as an example. And yeah, this context helped. The icon with the RID number user expectation would probably be hovering that icon to give some information, or clicking on this icon to display us information on what RID number is, what should we type, etc. But yeah, long story short, no one is reading helps like that. This is so old school. So try to provide context helps like this one. So you have context help. For instance, you are on the screen for the data feed format. You want to know what should you choose for data feed format, and when you click the question mark you get this information that it can be XML or JSON. For most people this is enough, but if you don't know what XML is, what JSON is, you still have a link with developer documentation, which will take you and give you the information details on all you need to know. Exploratory testing, you probably have heard about it, and you can do it by combining heuristics evaluation and cognitive walkthrough. So you should answer questions like can be done on wireframes, not actual product. It is good to have moderator and testers. testers think about while looking for different screenshots or prototype of the website or the website itself. And how would the tester conduct realistic tasks? Does anything confuse the tester? Additional features or enhancements? And exploratory testing can be combined with all these previous techniques. So just dedicate one Friday afternoon with your team and make an usability related exploratory test. It is worth it. And last but not least, questionnaires. You have those questionnaires to determine the usability, and I'm going to give you three of those. The first one is software usability measurement inventory, which is the de facto standard for 26 years. It is mentioned in the ISO standard as well as in European directives, and it is commercially available. You answer 50 questions like this, and you get a score in 6 different scales for efficiency, effect, helpfulness, control, learnability, and global usability. You can check for more information the link that is shown on your screen. Another good one, but very expensive, is SuperQ Standardized Universal Percentile Rank Questionnaire, which gets usability, trust and credibility, appearance, and loyalty. It is comparing your website with 200 others, and you need to answer 13 questions. And as I said, we're talking about usability with zero budget. So we have SUMI, we have SuperQ, but I recommend using System Usability Scale or SUS. This is a quick, dirty, and free option that is still reliable and valid scale. You need 20 users. It is very easy because you need to answer 10 questions and just fill one of the 5 options in a scale. How much do you agree? Scoring is somehow complex, so these are the 10 questions that you need to answer, and each item score is neither agree or disagree, totally agree, strongly disagree. So the scoring is for odd and even questions in different way. You multiply the sum of the score by 2.5 and get your SUS score, which is very important to say that it's not percentage. The average SUS score is 68. More than 80 is needed for excellent. Anything below 51 is bad. So you can get these A, B, C, D, F grades and determine the score of your software product. Last but not least, I would like to recommend some further readings. I already mentioned Steve Crook, and he has this book, Don't Make Me Think. If you have to read one book about usability, that is the best one. He also has another one that is about web usability called Rocket Surgery Made Easy. Also, I would recommend Paul Bulk's Client-Centric Web Design or Eric Rice's Usable Usability. And before I finish, I would like to cite Steve Crook again. So if you want a great site, you've got to test. After you have worked on a site for even a few weeks, you cannot see it fresh anymore. You know too much. So the only way to find out if it really works is to test it. Final summary. Difference between UI, UX and usability is something you already know, and you also know about 10 usability metrics, how to do cognitive walkthrough and heuristic evaluation together with 10 heuristics, how to combine the above in exploratory testing and questionnaires, and how to score usability. So I really hope you will try this out and that this has been useful to you, and would like to thank you for the attention and your patience. And if you have any questions, I will gladly answer them by all the means provided by the organizer of TestCon. Thank you for your time and your attention.